Yo, what you man saying? It's Nabil here. Just as a matter of advice, do not go into call centers. If any of you are thinking of going into call centers and believe that those rumors about call centers are basically fake, they're not, and I'm here to confirm that. They are shit in terms of like a proper job. And even when you're trying to like basically make sure that you can progress through it, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's fucking hard. And essentially, if it was like an atheist watching this video and they were to describe a call center, it would essentially be literal hell. It's literally hell on earth. That's how bad the call center is. As a matter of fact, if you want an accurate description of how bad a call center is, retail is better than this. Trust me, I worked in retail for like, I had a bit of experience in retail. I'll probably say that I'm pretty experienced in retail now. It's mainly within sales, but retail sales is much better than the call centers, especially when it comes to banks, which is what I'm working in now. But yeah, it's shit. So essentially how it's going to go is you basically have 3 weeks of training. The 3 weeks are absolutely useless. By the time we only got to the 3rd week, that's when some of the training is useful. But really it's not. It's really not. And you can essentially get fired for not keeping up with that training, even though it's so irrelevant. And yeah, that's how bad the training is. It's shit. And you can get fired for it. And speaking of firings, you can easily get fired for this job. This job basically has, targets, of course. But it's not like your usual sales targets. It's mainly like how quick you can get a call done. That's pretty impossible to achieve. This job exercise wants a lot of perfection out of you. And what you're going to be delivering is shit. Because let's face it, when it comes to call times, it is going to be really long. The reason why I say that is even with nice customers, it can be very long because sometimes they may be stuck on a particular issue. Now, although you may think, oh, it's not that bad, you are going to get a lot of disciplinary, mainly based on targets, and they're essentially looking for reasons to fire you easily. And this is especially the case with the lateness. If you're even like 1 second late, they give you a disciplinary. In my case, it's not like that, but it would probably be mostly like a minute. And some people have gotten disciplinaries from what I've seen for being a minute late. So yeah, this job is very strict when it comes to. Of course, all jobs are like that when it comes to strictness, but we are talking about a whole another level. Like, it's ridiculous. They essentially like watch you all the time to basically see if you're making a mistake or not. And it does not matter about the call times at all. The reason why is because there are also some criteria that you need to fill out. Essentially, basically what I've got is that I need to essentially use the CIVR. What is that? Is that you need to essentially introduce yourself with knowing the customer's query. If you don't do that, you basically get a fail. Even if the call is perfect, you still get a fail. On top of that, now I know lots of people are going to say, oh, mental health is like complete bullshit, But this job is mentally draining. Like, even if you disregard the mental health shit, yeah, you cannot expect 100% performance in terms of like attitude, personality. That's what the managers are mainly looking for you when it comes to this job. This job, you're essentially doing back-to-back calls. And when it comes to back-to-back calls, you're just sitting on a desk for like 8 to 9 hours doing essentially nothing but looking at a screen. You are bound to get tired. And when you are bound to get tired, you can't focus properly. And trust me, when it comes to like the really mad customers, which you essentially get a lot of, as a matter of fact, you get a lot of the bad customers more than the good customers. And what I mean by good customers, like customers that actually don't make a fuss about a particular issue, about your call times, etc., etc. So yeah, that's already in an issue itself. You already have these handling call times, but then you have these other criteria which makes it borderline impossible for you to essentially perfect a call. Even if it was perfect in your eyes, yeah, you're still gonna get a fail. On top of that, there's the disciplinaries and the math and the training is shit. And there's other features that I could potentially mention, like for example, some people. I heard that some people they actually have like a social media team and they essentially use that to track you down or something like that if you're doing like any sort of appropriate behavior and they give you discipline as well. I don't think that's true, but even then, if that was the case, I don't think they'll do much on that. But even then, the job is still bad as it is. So essentially, you're doing something that's borderline impossible, and managers can easily fire you based upon that. So if you were to go to a call center, make sure you have like any of the conversations recorded. Make sure you note down the names. Make sure you record them on the phone on the slide, because even though some call centers they basically don't allow you to go on phones, which I understand. Record it on the slide when it comes to like meeting with your managers in order to make sure that you basically have evidence. Really, they don't give a shit about you when it comes to basically the timings and issues we're going home. So essentially, what my issue is, yeah, it's kind of a wild story. Is that basically I had like 2 months, and it's still going on now. Like 2 months of logging on, and I'm still facing issues regarding it. Like literally, even though I done it incorrectly, followed all the instructions, yeah, still I can't log on. I have to constantly call someone up here in order to make sure that I can log on. And yeah, and even if you try to look for a solution in order to make sure that you can avoid it, like I tried to essentially change my hours essentially from 11 to 8 to 9 to 5 to make sure that I work in the office. That way I can basically go through all the issues a lot more faster. As some issues they essentially require to log on, but you don't need to do some passcode bullshit or anything like that. But yeah, even if you try to offer them a solution, they won't accept it because, policies, even though it's borderline stupid. But yeah, that's just one example of essentially, them not giving a shit about you. And then there's also a fact some of them are also snakes, like lots of snakes. Like for example, I had this one colleague. She was basically a really tired major to like lots of issues regarding kids, etc. Lots of issues regarding kids, single mother essentially, and then yeah, one of the other colleagues, like senior, who was about to go into management, yeah, essentially snaked the hell out of the colleague, and that's what essentially got the colleague basically to the point where she got fired. Yeah, so it's that bad. Some colleagues, you can see the true colours in terms of management. The management is ridiculous. They are very picky, and they basically are strict to like the finest detail, to the point where they're not even human. They're just robots. Literally no sort of empathy or like any sort of emotion at all. They won't give a shit about like your personal circumstance, even if you try to offer them a solution, in which it definitely works in that regard, but it really doesn't. So on top of that, with the fact that the managers don't even give a damn about you, although that's with any job pretty much, even if you fail a major task or not, this job really shows it out a lot. Like on the forefront, they don't even try to hide it. They like because some of the messages that I got from some of the managers, they sound like complete robots. I'm telling you that now. They don't give a shit about like any of your personal circumstances at all. They just disregard it and basically get too focused on the job, and that's where pretty much all the managers there. So yeah, So in terms of like what you should do if you are in a call center, work for promotion. The only reason why you're going to be getting into a call center is to work for promotion. Once you're on promotion, you're essentially going to be a supervisor role. Once you're a supervisor role, you're basically just training like a bunch of people to essentially get into like the call center role, which is miles better than being on call. Miles better. But then, even then, I've also heard some stories about it being bad. Like, have to take notes on like every single thing, regardless. Like, but in my personal opinion, I feel like that's a lot better than, being on call 24/7, back to back, where you have absolutely no room for like a single break at all. The max you can have is potentially 1 minute. That's it, 1 minute break, and then you go to another call. But the way they expect you to do it, they want you to go on to a call straight away with the moment you're done a task. So that's fucked. And if you don't even want to work from promotion, then just search for other jobs on the side. This is a job in which you're basically having your soul punished, bro. I'm telling you that now. Your soul will get fucked. Your brain will get fucked. Like you will be instead of mental health bullshit, yeah. Forget mental health. You will be tired for the rest. You will be doing shit performances. And those shit performances will add up, and then the manager will basically be like, "Oh, you're fired," because the targets and the expectations that they have are ridiculously high. Now, I'm not saying to have high expectations. Everyone should have high expectations when it comes to a job, but don't set it to a point where it's borderline impossible. And that's essentially what this job is: borderline impossible when it comes to quality, impossible when it comes to decent conditions in order for you to actually work, and and impossible to get any sort of you know, the company helping you out when it comes to the call centers, because they don't give a shit about you in all areas. So overall, if you are thinking of getting into a call center, please do not get into a call center. I am telling you, it will be the best career decision that you ever made in your entire life. If you ever think retail is bad, take it from me as a person who had some bad experiences in retail. Retail is far better than being in a call center. And essentially, you could use retail as a better part-time job than getting into a call center, especially when it comes to stores that are really chill. So yeah, that's gonna be it from me in regards to how shit a call center is. If you like this video, subscribe, like, share the video if you want to, comment, and yeah. Hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.